Hey, what's going on? In this video, I'm going to break down the exact process we use to take a client and scale them from $0 to 210K in the first 30 days of working with them, 65K of that being within the first 7 days. In this video, I'm also going to be going over the key foundations that allowed us to scale and you can use in your own info product business, the 14-day launch sequence we use to launch this client, as well as the 170K month VSL funnel that we use to not only just collect cash from the launch sequence, but continuously scale them month after month. So whether you're an operator or you're an offer owner, I think you'll get a lot of value from this video. And before we go any further, just so you guys know that this is all actually real, here are some of the payment processor screenshots that we have. As you can see, we have some of our bigger days, our bigger weeks, our bigger months. We have our Looker Studio dashboard screenshots. Feel free to pause the video if you'd like. And we have some of our, of course, our Slack channel pips listed here. Just one of many, obviously. But something I want to note on is, yes, it is cool to do 210K in the first 30 days from a launch sequence, but there is a huge trend where people are doing a launch sequence, whether it's a 2-week, 3-week launch sequence, collect as much cash as you possibly can within the first 30 days, and then flex that, oh, I made 300K, 500K, 100K in the first 30 days from a launch sequence. And they never really tell you what happens the following months. And the reason is because oftentimes the following months are just dead. They liquidated their entire organic audience in the first 30 days. They did really like unscalable fulfillment system, meaning they only sold like one-to-one because they just wanted to get as much money as they possibly can in the first 30 days. They really had no systems or no long-term plan to scale, and the leads were handled extremely poorly by the sales team, and they just completely dropped the bag. This is a very common issue I see in this space, and I want to make it a point here to say that we did not do this. If you can get into this with the intention of doing a launch sequence, making cash in the first 30 days because you have an organic audience to sell to, but then continuously scaling month after month and setting up systems where you can scale on your organic audience month after month, and then ultimately scaling with paid, as that should be your end goal. And I'll get into that a bit later. But anyone getting into this should be getting into this with the intention. If you have an organic audience, to scale to your organic audience, validate your offer, and then move into paid traffic, because that'll only help you later on. If you can get into it with that intention, you're going to make 20, 30 times more money than if you were to just get into this with the intention of doing a launch sequence and then leaving yourself to just fulfill on your students for like 3, 6 months afterwards. Anyways, that is something I cannot stand, and I want to make it clear that we did not do that. Anyways, going into the key foundations that we use to scale, and keep in mind, I'm going to be going over these from a marketing perspective because that is what we do. One of the key foundations we use to scale is offer positioning. This is something that we were very conscious of when we were scaling this offer. When launching a BizUp offer, you really need to keep in mind that there is going to be your competition, and your competition is going to be having probably the same offer positioning as everyone else, right? It's going to be the same offer positioning where it's, I help people make 10K a month, leave your 9 to 5, Amazon FBA coach. For this example, I'm going to use Amazon FBA. So let's say you have an Amazon FBA offer. If your offer positioning is, I help people leave their 9 to 5 and make 8 to 12K a month with Amazon FBA, think about your competition and their offer positioning as chances are the exact same positioning, right? You're competing on your organic audience and you're competing on your content, right? Whereas if you can have better positioning, and let's say you're over time, you're realizing, okay, I'm actually selling to a lot of stay-at-home moms, for example, and you're realizing, wow, these stay-at-home moms, they're paying up front, they're actually good. Like I have a system where I can actually help them, and you position your Amazon FBA offer towards stay-at-home moms. That is a much more scalable offer than trying to scale your existing one where your offer positioning is leading with income, leading with making money, and helping people leave their 9 to 5. Because when you're leading with this up here, you got to imagine the type of leads that are going to come into your funnel. This is going to be brain dead, bottom of the barrel, low intent, people who have tried every single business model and probably have absolutely no cash, which means your cash per call is going to be extremely low. Like you're going to have so much problems trying to scale with this, especially if you're going into this with paid. It is just not really going to work, right? So one thing I want to note here is that if you get into this once again, you should be getting into this with the intention of scaling with paid later on. And the reason for this is because your organic audience eventually is going to hit a certain threshold where you can't really scale past it. If you're running an organic offer right now, you probably know what I mean. But you're going to hit a certain threshold where you really start trying to like cap at that, and you're trying to like hit past it, but it's just kind of capping. You can't really scale past that. So point is, and also is your organic audience will eventually kind of die off. It'll start fizzling. So a way to combat that and a way to scale past that is by putting paid traffic into that. And that is where most of the offers right now are absolutely crushing it. So if you can get into this with the intention of scaling with paid, you can make a lot more money. But to tie in positioning to that, your positioning needs to be a lot more specific. You can't just have like 10K a month and leave your 9 to 5 as your offer positioning on paid traffic. It's not really going to work. What you instead need is more specific offer positioning, right? So if we use that Amazon FBA offer example, and you instead realize, okay, cool, I'm helping stay-at-home moms scale with Amazon FBA. That's my favorite ICP. I help them really well. You can have your Amazon offer, all your marketing material, help stay-at-home moms. For example, your ads can be like targeting like mom's pain points where it's like you're so busy like driving the kids back and forth from like school, going to like soccer practice, like making dinners. I know you don't have a lot of time, We've helped countless stay-at-home moms make an extra 4 to 6K a month with only 2 hours a week from Amazon FBA, and like we have all these testimonials, and like you realize that you have that, like that is such a competitive moat and an edge that your competitors won't have, and this is going to allow you to dominate the Amazon FBA space for stay-at-home moms, and that is going to be a way easier offer to scale on paid versus just being the thousandth FBA Amazon FBA offer that helps people make 10K a month, right? So offer positioning is a huge lever to pull, not only on organic, but also especially on paid. And I like to think about this as like, if you can run an offer on paid traffic, then running it on organic is a lot easier. So if you can just use your paid offer and put it to organic, it crushes way harder. Anyways, questions to ask to help you find your right offer positioning is, who do you help best? For example, the stay-at-home mom offer, if you realize that you're helping a lot of stay-at-home moms, you realize, okay, cool, I help these people the best, but who do you help best? Like, what makes you individually unique? Maybe you have an individual like specific trait about yourself, like maybe you're a stay-at-home mom. Maybe you're an ex executive, an ex CEO from a company, and like you understand how busy CEOs are. What's your competitive moat? Like, what do you do differently? What's like different about your process, like your unique mechanism? This is something that comes into offer positioning a lot. Kind of like understanding what makes you uniquely different. Who have you helped? Why is your process different from your competition? And really leaning into what differentiates yourself is going to help you find a competitive offer positioning. Then once again, being the thousands off helps people make 10K a month. Point is to build it right from day one. It is way cheaper than rebuilding it later. If you can just build it right from day one, you will thank yourself later. Now, a good example of offer positioning is this guy right here who has a remote home service business offer. Instead of just packaging this up as a biz op offer to make 12K a month with remote home service businesses, this guy framed it as a licensing opportunity and an investment opportunity, and instead now attracts way higher quality leads. And he's crushing, and I know that because his paid ads are popping up everywhere on my feed. And if you can see here, his hook on these ads are oftentimes, if you're on the East Coast, for $25,000 to invest, and frame this as a complete investment opportunity. And you can imagine this guy's going to get a way higher quality lead, people who have $25,000 to actually invest, than people who are just looking to make 10K a month online with a side hustle. And to give you guys a bit more proof on this guy's offer, here is his landing page right here. As you can see, his header, his headline is, "We will partner with you to build a remote cash flowing business in 90 days, no experience needed." As you can see, there's just a lot more of like a licensing investment opportunity instead of just saying make 10K a month in the next 60 days with remote home service businesses. Moving on to messaging. Your messaging is essentially going to determine who you attract. If your messaging, for example, is kind of slop language that is talking to, like, let's just say an 18-year-old, you're going to get opportunity seekers, tire kickers, people who've tried everything, who are not ready to invest. Whereas if you have good messaging, for example, this guy down here, so if you're on the East Coast with over $25,000 to invest and framing it as an investment opportunity, you can get financially qualified people who are already committed. An example is, let's say you are running an ecom offer or an AI offer. Bad messaging for this would be the new easy way to do dropshipping, the easiest way to make 10K a month. This is going to attract the worst kind of people. Now, good messaging. An example of this is, if you have capital to invest in a mobile app business that builds enterprise value, one that you can actually scale and sell one day, think about who is going to be interested in this versus people who are going to be interested in the new easy way to try dropshipping, right? The people who are going to be interested in this type of messaging down here to scale, sell a mobile app business are going to be way more qualified, way more serious people. And once again, it's going to attract financially qualified people. It's going to attract your actual ICP you want. The truth here about messaging is it doesn't really matter how well you build the offer. If you don't know how to convey it properly and to attract the actual person you're looking to attract, it's not going to work out very well for you. Plain and simple. But this is the truth. Now, another thing about messaging is your messaging, once again, to really drive home on this point, it is essentially a mirror of who you're going to bring in. So if you're talking like you're trying to talk to an 18-year-old, you're going to get 18-year-olds. Whereas if you're talking and you're positioning your offer towards busy executives in business, then you're going to attract busy executives in business, right? You're going to attract people you want. So you need to be very conscientious of, okay, I'm positioning this offer to business executives. I can't use 18-year-old language slop. Like, I need to make my messaging geared to people who are business executives and have all my messaging aligned with that ICP. An example I have for messaging and positioning is fishing. I've seen people throw this net out before in what appears to be just a random pot of water, and all they get is like these low kind of quality, like 3 to 4 inch like bait fish, and they just like use it, like I said, as bait. This is essentially your low quality positioning and messaging, where you're like an Amazon FBA offer, not really standing out, and you're using messaging as make 10K a month, like leave your 9 to 5, and that's like your positioning. Your messaging is talking to like 18-year-olds, and like it's like you're attracting the worst quality leads. Like, you're gonna get like these, like, for example, these like 3 to 4 inch fish that are just like not worth a ton. You'll maybe once in a blue moon get like a solid fish that you can actually eat, but you're gonna get like low quality fish like 99% of the time. Whereas if you can have high quality positioning, high quality messaging, for example, this lure, right? Like, whoever created this lure probably had to go out, figure out what this little like bluefin tuna, I presume, is like eating, what the fish looks like, how big that fish is, and then specifically create a lure designed to catch this bluefin tuna that this bluefin tuna would actually be interested in. That's you kind of like crafting your positioning and your actual messaging, right? That's you going out and being like, what does my ICP actually like talk like? What are they actually interested? What are their pain points? And then you're kind of like crafting a lure, your offer, and casting it out there, whether it's like in your marketing, and that you're essentially trying to catch like a more valuable fish. And like maybe this actual valuable fish is your exact ICP that's financially qualified. But point here is like if you're just casting out a wide net, and your wide net here for this example is casting out a random wide net and being broad with your messaging, you're going to attract kind of broad low quality leads. Whereas if you can be more specific and attract your exact ICP, you can get a way higher qualified ICP. However, one thing I will note on is that offer positioning and offer messaging is something that's very nuanced and very dependent on each individual offer. So it's something that I encourage you to just shoot me a message about it on Instagram, as it's not really something I can just break down as like one criteria, one formula on a YouTube video. Moving on to the third key principle we use to scale this client, and that's just doing a full psychoanalysis of your ICP. The good thing here is that we have AI for all of this now, which I'll go into how to use for this here in a second, but really just once you understand your positioning, your messaging, asking the questions of who really is your ICP, what do they believe, what are their pain points, what have they already tried, what's stopping them from hitting their goal, what objections do they actually give on sales calls. And the thing here is that if you have 15 to 20 sales calls from this specific ICP, you can throw all of that into what's called a Claude project, which I'm sure you guys all know. And then getting all that, so getting their pain points, their objections, all their desired outcomes in descending order of the frequency in which they're coming up on sales calls. And you can get all of that once again from AI. And if you can get all that, you can write much more specific and much more dialed marketing material, which is going to help you a lot, not only on your organic offer, but especially on paid traffic. And the final point I'll note on this is just to have data over guessing. If you can actually have real data on what's showing up, so talking to your setters, taking what's coming off of sales calls, using that in your messaging opposed to just getting a feeling of what you think is coming up, that is going to way outperform once again, just guessing on based off feelings. Now, moving on to the 14-day launch sequence, we used a launches client. Keep in mind, I'm not going to go super into depth on how we actually did the launch sequence. This could be a whole video, but the trap here is that most people just stop here and the offer dies. So I'm not really going to go too into detail. The main thing I want to go over is how we are actually able to scale this client month after month after the launch sequence. But the strategy here is for 14 days, you're essentially building hype on Instagram stories. And from your Instagram stories, you're pushing people to a Telegram waitlist. You're maybe skipping 1 to 2 days on Instagram stories for 14 days. But the way here is you do like 1 to 2 stories a day, every single day, maybe skip 1 to 2 days, like I said, and you're pushing people to a Telegram waitlist. In order to get to the Telegram waitlist, they need to fill out some sort of Typeform application. Now, the Typeform application, you're asking questions to get more data on who you can expect to see when you actually launch, as well as getting their email. The email is important because you are going to send out launch sequence emails. You're going to start these about 5 days before the launch. You're going to send out 2 to 3 emails per day, 5 days before you launch. And these emails are just going to build up more hype before you actually launch. And in the Telegram waitlist, it's important to note, you should be sending out messages every single day before you actually launch and when you launch. Now, the whole thesis here is you're just building up as much hype as you possibly can for the actual launch on your stories. Inside your Telegram, you're sending out messages every day. 5 days before you launch, you're sending out emails, building up more hype on why this is important, why they should care, more testimonials, more proof, like building up as much anticipation as you can over 14 days. And the result of this is we collected $210,000 in a 30-day period after launching this client. However, once again, the trap here is that most people can do a good launch sequence. However, it just stops there. The offer owner just has to fulfill on those students, and they don't scale month after month. Scaling month after month is the harder part. So moving on to the 170K a month via sell funnel, we use to scale our client month after month after the launch sequence. Top of funnel here, we have Instagram Reels. Secondary to that, we have YouTube. Keep in mind, we started YouTube literally right when we launched our offer. YouTube is a long game. It's not something you're going to build and just immediately start getting a lead flow from. So this is something, if you're starting YouTube, build for the future. This is not an instantaneous thing where you're going to get instant hits. This is definitely a long game you're playing here with YouTube. So our main traffic source is 95% from Instagram. So this is short form content, high volume, fast results. The other type of funnel we have here is ManyChat Reels. These are reels we scripted for Instagram content. So these are essentially ads we have on organic where it's a scripted reel with the intention of getting them to comment a ManyChat reel or DM us a ManyChat keyword, So either they're commenting a ManyChat keyword or DMing us a ManyChat keyword, or story lead magnets. These are essentially story CTAs where they either DM us a ManyChat keyword. Now there's 3 paths that this all links to, and I'm going to go over each path right now. So let's say they just watch a reel from our Instagram content and they click on our profile. If they click on our profile and they go to our link in bio, the path here is Instagram profile, link in bio, VSL page, Typeform app, CRM, and then a phone setter calls them. And after this, I'm going to go into our whole phone setup process. Path 2 is ManyChat. So if they DM us a ManyChat keyword or they comment a ManyChat keyword, we start with a content lead magnet. There's a ManyChat opt-in asking which ICP are you, and then we're sending out a custom freebie based on their ICP. Now, obviously, when we get them the custom freebie sent, they have to fill out a Typeform application to get that custom freebie. If they fill out that Typeform, then a phone setter can call them because then that creates a lead in our CRM. If they don't fill out the Typeform, then we have a DM setter re-engage them and try to book a call with them directly in the DMs if they go through the whole DM setter process and they are qualified. Now moving on to path 3, this is direct application. So this is after a story CTA. Story CTA, VSL page, Typeform application, CRM, phone setter calling. Now moving on to ManyChat. So ManyChat allows us to segment by ICP and deliver personalized freebies. So as you can see here, this is obviously something I have to blur out due to client exclusivity, but this person DM'd us a ManyChat keyword. We respond with, yo, just want to make sure I point you in the right direction, which option fits you best. We're essentially asking which ICP they are. They respond with, I'm this ICP. We respond with, got it. I just created a quick vid going over exactly how to scale this business model. Just fill out this form and I'll send it right over. When they fill out this form, it's creating a lead in our CRM. A phone setter can then call them. If they don't fill this out, once again, then a DM setter can re-engage them in the DMs and try to book a call with them if they are qualified after going through the DM setter qualification process. Now, moving on to the phone setter process down here. So the phone setter process has 3 branches. So if they're qualified over the phone, we are going to book them to a call with one of our closers, and then they're going to enter the pre-call sequence. Now, branch 2 is if they're unqualified. If they're unqualified, then we do what's called a setter takedown. So keep in mind, we have 3 different offers. We have a low ticket downsell, which is just course curriculum. We have a mid tier, which is basically group coaching. We have a high ticket, which is a little bit of one-to-one involved, and that's 10K. So it's 1K, 5K, 10K. If they're unqualified and maybe they have less than $1,000 to invest, our setter is doing what's called the setter takedown, which is on the setter call, pitching a downsell. Now, this alone has added 9.9K just in 1 month. In September, when we did about 168K, this added 9.9K, and this was 5.88% of our cash that month. And this is something, if you're not already doing it right now, is something to easily implement and something to easily add a little bit of cash to. While it's not massive, it is an easy change to add a little bit of cash. Now moving on to branch 3, no answer. So if a phone setter calls a lead and they don't answer, this is where follow-ups come into play. You need follow-up smart views. So 3-day new apps, 7-day new apps, 30-day new apps, like new application smart views where all your leads populate that haven't yet booked a call that your phone setter can continuously hammer for follow-ups. This is something that's extremely important. And the truth here is that money is actually in the follow-ups. You cannot rely on new leads daily. Setters must do follow-ups. You are leaving money on the table otherwise. So branch 3 here is they are just hammered with follow-ups by using our custom smart views for follow-ups. Now, before we go into the pre-call sequence, something I want to note on is we're running a VSL funnel. So the actual VSL is extremely important for the effectiveness of running this funnel. An example someone gave me of the VSL that I like a lot is the VSL is like the nucleus of the cell. I don't know how many of you guys have taken like middle school science or elementary school science, but the nucleus is the command center of the cell. Essentially, all these little parts of the cell essentially branch off the nucleus, and your VSL is essentially the same way, where everything branches off the VSL. Your pre-call emails, your nurture sequences, your ads, your CTAs, all the marketing materials stem off of the VSL. So the process here is to write the VSL first. Put a lot of emphasis on making sure the angles in your VSL are good, your targeting in your VSL is good, and then write your pre-call emails, your CTAs, all your marketing material after. So by the time they watch an ad from you, for example, if they watch an ad, by the time they watch your VSL afterwards, the ad is congruent with your messaging and the angle in the VSL. And the way to think about this is you need congruency within all parts of the marketing. So congruency within the funnel is critical. You don't want a lot of ups and downs where there's a bunch of like different things being said. You want everything to be very congruent, and all messaging must align within what's actually being said within the VSL if that's going to be your main conversion mechanism. So that's an example I like, and that's something that's very important for the effectiveness of actually running a highly effective VSL funnel. Now moving on to the pre-call sequence. So pre-call sequence, the number one thing about here is the pre-call assets. So we have 3 different ICPs. So we have 3 essentially different videos we send to our 3 different ICPs, or at least 3 different classes of videos. So I'll give you an example. If you are running an Amazon FBA offer and you're selling to existing business owners and you're selling to beginners, you're not going to send videos that were made for beginners towards existing business owners. It's just not going to work. It's going to be incongruent. And once again, you need congruency within your funnel. Now, the purpose of these pre-call assets is to essentially handle the objections, handle the frequently asked questions, and to get your leads pre-sold before they show up to the call. And just to be clear, you're going to need all of these for your closers to actually like you. If you don't have these, your closers are going to hate you on your offer. So the point of these pre-call assets, these are videos we have in YouTube for my YouTube videos. And if you have YouTube videos right now, you can use these as pre-call assets as long as they are fitting. And these are also videos we custom made and we have them hosted in Wistia that we send to our leads that are custom custom bidding for that ICP to get them pre-sold before the call. That's the main purpose of these pre-call assets. The next one is the pre-call email sequence. So this is the second they actually book a call with us, they are opted in and they're automatically opted into our pre-call email sequence. This email sequence starts once again the second they actually book a call. We're giving them more reasons to show up. We're dropping more authority from the offer on proof and testimonials and essentially pre-selling them even more before they get to the call. As you can see, the goal here for both of these is just to essentially pre-sell them before they get to the call so they show up more pre-sold and more nurtured and they have less questions, less objections by the time they actually get on the call with the closer. Now, number 3 is automated pre-call sequences in Calendly, email, and SMS reminders. This is something you have to kind of go out and experiment yourself. So for us, we do multiple touch points in email and SMS the second they actually book a call in Calendly. These are just basic Calendly reminders. However, you do have to draw the line of being annoying. So you can test this with your own offer and see where there's drop off. You want to get a lot of touch points in on both email and SMS, but you don't want to get to the points where you're just being annoying and then you're going to have drop off. So definitely test this and see, okay, what's too much and what's too little. Now, number 4 is closer touch points. Closer touch points, just being the closer actually staying in touch with the lead before the call and getting all the touch points in. Now, the purpose for all of this is to essentially have your leads show up 1, pre-sold, 2, properly framed, and 3, have a solid show up rate by the time they get on the call. Now, let's move into what happens when they actually schedule the call, right? Like after they schedule the call, what happens? Branch 1 is they show. If they show, they either close or they don't close. If they close, have good fulfillment, obviously, so you don't have a lot of chargebacks on your account. If they don't close, schedule a follow-up if needed from the closer, update the statuses in the CRM, and fill out an EOC. And the call report, that is. Branch 2 is no show. If they don't show, have the setter re-engage and have the setter follow up and try to get them to get back on a call. Now, next thing I want to go over is the data engine on why we can actually scale. This is something that's extremely important. So I mentioned above here, end of call reports, end of call reports, end of day reports from your sales team. All of this stuff is extremely important to actually have accurate data within your sales team. So if you don't have data, you cannot scale. What do you actually need to track? You need to track your sales team data, meaning your setter performance, your closer performance. You need to know your funnel economics. You need to know your cash per booked call, your cash per call taken, your live call to close rate, your basic close rate, your show rate, your AOV, like all these basic funnel economics you need to know and you need to map out. You need to put all of this into a master tracking sheet. And the thing here is that if your numbers are bad on organic and you actually want to move into paid traffic, you're going to just burn money. Or if you don't even know your numbers and you don't know your setup performance or your closer performance, or you don't know your cash per call taken, you don't know your show rate, like you're going to burn so much money because you haven't mapped it out properly before you get into paid traffic. Now, another mistake I see a lot of offer owners making is not tracking their accounts receivables, and it's costing them at least 30 to 40K a month just because they're not doing this right. What a lot of people do is they'll just have an in-house payment plan, meaning accounts receivable, and they'll finance it by doing 2,500 by 2. They'll send the lead a $2,500 payment plan, trust that their closer will follow up the next month to collect that, or they'll put it in a Google Sheet and trust that they'll remember. And what happens is the closer will get fired or they'll forget, and it is just a super hairy process, and you need all of this to be automated. And if you can have an automated tracking system that tracks payment plans, tracks due dates, track which closer sold it, and hits them hard on due dates, you can track all of this like a real business actually would. And if you can hit them hard on due dates, the result here for us actually having this is we have collected $23,000 on single days just from people who have owed us money on in-house payment plans. And that's the result of us just tracking our accounts receivable properly. So this is something, if you don't already have, I highly recommend you going out and doing. Now, an example of a Looker Studio dashboard, which I do have to blur some things out just for client and closer exclusivity, is this right here. These are all basic metrics that you basically should be tracking from a closer perspective and just from an offer perspective, such as cash per call taken, cash per booked call, AOV, show rate, close rate, live call to close rate. This is the individual cash collected per closer, the individual close rate per closer. And then down here, we obviously have a bunch of closers' names down here. Calls on calendar, show rate, pitch rate, live call to close rate, deals closed, cash collected, revenue earned, revenue per deal, as well as cash per deal closed. These are all things that are absolutely critical to know in order for you to make justified decisions on your sales team, on your marketing, etc., and be able to actually scale your offer further. Moving on to the key principles that made this all work. Principle number 1 is consistency. So having daily sales team check-ins, enforcing your KPIs daily, and holding your team accountable to these KPIs. Consistent team meetings every single day, maintaining team culture. This doesn't make a huge difference from day one, but this does compound months over months, and this will result in a very high-performing sales team. Principle number 2, test one thing at a time. This goes back to like the very basic elementary school / like middle school science example, but having one independent variable at a time. So if your goal, for example, is maybe to increase close rate, don't change closer and setup pitch together. Make sure you know which change is actually resulting in the goal you're looking to achieve. This is something that's basic but critical, but it just helps you actually know which data is being accurate. Now, principle number 3 is data. So data is everything. You can't scale without it. Track everything. Make decisions from your data and your numbers, not from your feelings. You need data, so having EODs, end of call reports, all that tracked in a dashboard. Now, moving on to principle number 4, and that's fulfillment built to scale. A lot of people just sell only one-to-one, and that's extremely unscalable. And the thing here is infrastructure must be able to handle growth, and you can't scale if fulfillment breaks. So a good way to do this is having, once again, 3 tiers of your actual offer. A down sell that's maybe just course curriculum, a mid tier that's maybe just group coaching, and a high ticket that is a little bit of one-to-one. If you're only selling one-to-one and you cap yourself out on time and you can't scale because your fulfillment breaks, you're not going to be able to go very far. Now, moving on to principle number 5, small wins compound. Chances are you will not get that magic 2x in your business you're looking for. However, you can get a 5% increase every here and there from changing your headline, increasing your VSL performance, getting better setters, etc. And those compound, and those are going to drastically outperform waiting for this magic 2x in your business. Now that wraps up the exact process we use to take a client from $0 to scaling them to $210,000 in the first 30 days of working with them, to then averaging around $170K a month afterwards with our VSL funnel. If you found this video helpful and you want to work with us, there is a form link down below. Or if you just want to shoot us a few questions on Instagram, I'll link my Instagram down below there as well. But if you like this video, feel free to drop a subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.